thank you all for coming along tonight to the first local digital community meetup of 2024. We've got loads of you here today. So thank you for all braving trains and weather and everything else in February. It's really, really good to see you. And we've got like a really good lineup for you tonight. So hopefully it'll be worth it, and some networking and some drinks and everything else. So I will just run you through the order of events tonight. It's very informal. It's a local digital community meetup. We had 4 of these last year. Some of you would have come to them already. I was at a few. You'll meet some of our colleagues here from both DLUC and also from TPX who will be introducing themselves. And it's about, we've got 4 talks. So we'd usually have 5. We had 1 drop out. We've got 4 talks. So going to give them about 5 to 7 minutes each. We're not going to do questions throughout because we're going to have some stations at the end. So there's 4 stations. And after the talks, everybody can kind of grab some drinks, grab something to eat, and then go to a station that they're interested in, asking some questions, have a network, have a mingle, like ask questions there. Feel free. It's really, really informal. Please use social media to promote the event. And yeah, as I say, gather around your speakers wall afterwards. I won't talk for very much longer because you don't want to listen to me. And I think we've got our first speaker, and unfortunately Terry's not here because he's got a poorly child, but Sam is here to talk from Greater Cambridge Planning, who is Cambridge City Council and South Cambs District Council. Sam, I'll hand over to you.
I don't know how loud I'm going to have to speak into this, so apologies. I hope everybody can hear. So good evening. As Paul said, tonight was going to be a double act, but tonight it's going to be a one-woman show. My name's Sam Johnson. I work for Greater Cambridge Shared Planning. We are doing a lot of work around digital transformation. We're a very small team, but we've got great ambition. And tonight I'm talking about our 450 days of pain. Giving you a little bit of background to this topic beforehand, a bit of context. We started our digital transformation couple of 3 years ago now in the depths of COVID, and we've got some key drivers around why we started doing this work. Obviously government planning reforms, increasing in citizen engagement, wide participation, really digging down into what our community wants. And even though some of those reforms may decrease the amount of time it takes to do a local plan, we do not want to diminish any of our public engagement. And then that data that this creates, the information that we get from that leads us to be able to create our local plan, really getting a grip with that data, the structure, how we get it, where we use it, and what we're going to do with it. From that, we did work around creating a wholly digital local plan for our last consultation. We did have it available as a PDF. We wanted to maintain that inclusionary work, but really, that's the direction of travel for us. It was a big ask, I think. Was that going to be working for us? Was that something that people would accept? And we've got some results on the next slide. There's really somebody at the door. So that was really useful for us. There are other work we did around some online webinars, online forums, videos that aided people to be able to see what we wanted to do, what that work might look like. But really, the things that went well, that there was acceptance. It was well accepted by public and by our council members alike. And it increased the number of representations by about 1,500. So, there's a lot of stuff going on there. But what that means for us is that although we have an online consultation system already, and a lot of work goes through that, there's also different ways of getting that data to us. We didn't want to just have it through the digital platform. We took surveys, and obviously we take however that representation might come to us. That means potentially a lot of manual work. So And I would have to say, yes, we did continue with in-person events as well, and that is something that we will continue with no matter where we go with this transformation. What did we learn? What could be improved? Really, I'd say it's the emails. There are around 20% of what we get, and it is the tricky 20%. It's the complex representation submissions, along with supporting documents, massive supporting documents, numerous supporting documents for each submission. They refer to different policies. They might even send us information around alternative sites they want us to view and all the data that comes with that. What that meant for us is, as we put in the title, around 450 days of officer time for one consultation over the period of about 9 months. It's huge. We can't maintain that going forward, so what are we going to do? How are we going to address that? We've already discussed in the earlier slide around what government's ambition is. We want to be able to maintain and increase our engagement going forward, so how do we address that? This is where we come to our PropTech bid. We wanted to be able to do those things I've spoken about and look at it from a different approach. So the first thing we looked at when we were very luckily successful with our bid was to look at a data discovery project with the lovely 2PX. And we looked at what we had as a baseline. What were we doing now? What worked for us, what didn't work for us, what did officers feel was helpful, what was a real pain for them to do. Also, we spoke to stakeholders. These were mainly the larger stakeholders, the commercial, the utilities, all those people that are sending in those complex reps with lots of information with them by email. And what we discovered from that was some of the feedback around how complex planning is in the Greater Cambridge area. We have a lot going on all the time. There's lots of places like that, obviously, but we really need to, we've got a very sort of active community as well, which will respond to us at every stage and keep on top of that as well. Really how we engage with those stakeholders is so important. As you see there, there's a lack of perceived transparency. And also, we did find out at this point that they still wanted to be able to send things by email. And I think we hoped we'd be able to sort of step back from that quite quickly, and that maybe isn't the case. As you can see, there's 3 outputs from that: process automation, AI-assisted analysis, and a unified user experience. We're focusing mainly at the moment on the process automation and what we're referring to as traditional software improvements. We have, like I said, a consultation system already, but to get those emails into that system is a hugely manual process. There's lots of touch points throughout. We have to take data in, we have to take data out. How do we work with that? We're now looking at something that takes an email and works it through the system. We will not touch it. We will, because we're going to check it, the hell out of it, to make sure we're getting what we need and to make sure we've got a robust system in place. We won't move through this quickly. We're working on that with our existing supplier, and we're getting some good results. It's not there yet. But what it will do is also check for an up-to-date privacy policy, check whether they've got one, and make sure that we're complying with GDPR. It will also be able to check, split our individuals from our kind of agent developer site so that they might have the ability to put in larger files, because one of our problems is that they might send that through WeTransfer or something similar at the moment, and that really is, we're not getting to that quick enough for that to go out of date, and then embarrassingly we might have to go back to them and go, so sorry, we haven't got that quite yet. Can you send it to us again? The second stage, which is enabled through the application of this first stage, is really to then take that information and pop it into the system. It will identify using its AI, machine learning, bit of an NLP, and entity identification, I can never say that, and take that information and place it against an existing user. Is it this person? Yes. Is it not? Is it a new user? We'll create a user for that. Once we've got those in place, we can then start looking at how we can unpick those particular submissions. That's a little bit into the future. We've started on discussions with large language models. There's a team that's already worked with PINs to create one. They've used our data before, so we could perceive that as a jumping off point, so we don't have to create one from scratch. There are alternatives that are on the market, but we've got to be super sensitive around data security, and a lot of the existing ones, even if we go down to ChatGPT, does not have that security. They're not based in Europe or the UK. The data standards in America aren't there, so we won't be using them. We will not be putting our data into anything that can't guarantee us security going forward. So just some little takeaways from where we are now. And maybe this is a little bit radical considering there's a lot of people talking about AI here today, I realise. Really ask yourself the question when you start any sort of transformation, productivity enhancement, what's the question you want to ask? What's the question you need answering? What is really important to you? What do you need to solve? Focus on that. You might need a data discovery. That'll help you understand what you're doing better. You might think you know it. I would say that we learned a lot about maybe things we hadn't thought about that we took as read. And what's the value of those things? Is it really something that makes a change internally, externally, to individual users? What does it mean to you? What will it give you? How are you going to do it? Take small steps. Don't leap ahead. I was at a conference earlier today where every single person said that. Don't be leaping ahead. Get your data sorted. Make sure you know where you're going. Don't be the first one, be the best one. And as I said earlier, AI might not be the answer. It might be that what you need is to enhance what you already have. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Think about how you will use your existing data better, how you will maybe train and skill up to get those little bits of the system that you're not using might actually solve your problem. And finally, plan ahead. Sort out your data, structure your data, get it into good condition for what you might do next. The next things that are coming in AI will be different to what we know right now. It's such early days. And the last one just goes back to the beginning. It's really about review. Really take that and ask yourself those questions. So thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
Got some umbrellas just to collect.
No worries. They'll get some. There's about 100 umbrellas down here, by the way. Yeah, I think we can say amen to planning your data and sorting your data out. Definitely. Right. Thank you, Sam. Next up, we've got Phil from West Berkshire Council, and I think.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Phil Ribbons. I work for West Berkshire Council, and I'm going to give you some practical examples of things you can do with AI in local government right now. When I say AI today, so I might mean artificial intelligence, I might mean LLM, I might mean generative AI, I might mean machine learning. Be kind to me, I might mean all of these things or none of these things. I'm just going to use AI for the purposes of today. Things I'm not talking about today, so I'm not talking about what we've been doing with potholes and machine learning and taking hours of video and looking at stuff like that. Not talking about that today. Other things I'm not talking about today are ethics, not really talking about data security today, or culture or design. In fact, there's an endless list of stuff I'm not talking about today. Sorry? Okay. But let's talk about the things I am talking about today. I'll touch very briefly on data security. So using public AI, everyone's probably seen that before. Hands up who's used ChatGPT before? Hands up who's put private data in ChatGPT? No, well done, because when Samsung did that, that's what happened to Samsung employees. It appeared in ChatGPT. They used it as part of their learning. So do please avoid doing that. For the demos we put together and actually the production stuff, we're using the enterprise version of ChatGPT. So I'd advise you, other AI and large language models are available. but they will not use your data for training, and absolutely make sure when you do any of this, you've got that sort of protection in place. So the first thing we looked at was job advertisements. And why did we pick that? Well, we already had an online process for that. So there's our lovely request to recruit form, and we did process design and all sorts of wonderful things with that. And we thought, well, why would we use this as an example, as our first example? Well, the kind of things that the form and the process captures are things like this, and they're all going to go in the public domain anyway. So we still are looking at the sort of data security and ethics and all those other things that you absolutely should be thinking about. But this is kind of public stuff anyway, and we actually want as many people as possible to see this sort of stuff when we are advertising a job. So we kind of thought it's less contentious, let's use this. So what we did is we developed a prototype and put it into production, and now we have the enterprise version of ChatGPT writing job advertisements for us. I'll go through the little bit of a testing we did with that, but that's worked really well. Also produced LinkedIn posts with emojis as well. So I produced those. So we tested this out before we made it live. Tested it out with recruiting managers, and it came back as an 8 out of 10, where 0 was this is awful. Just start again. I could write from scratch much better, and 10 is brilliant. I don't need to change anything. And generally, what we've found is my colleague Matt calls it a B minus. Generative AI will come up with a sort of B minus, 8 out of 10. It still needs a human eye to look over it because there may be Americanizations in there. Just occasionally, it's called what's called hallucinates. Just comes up with things that just aren't correct. But it's certainly at least half the amount of time we take to write job advertisements now. That's been in production for quite a while now. So then we thought, what else might we be able to use this for? So we looked at rewriting stuff. And again, this is for sort of public content that might already be out there. And we created a little prototype there. That's quite small on the screen here, but there's a couple of sentences in there. The box down there says reading age, and that's set to 11 on there. And you can imagine what this is going to do. When you click next, it rewrites that sentence or those two sentences for the reading age of 11. But there are other ages, other age groups we might want to cater for. And just by changing the age, so 1 or 2 characters in the engineering prompt, it's now rewritten it for age 5. And it's very, very quick and easy to do that. The script to do that, I think, probably took about 2 or 3 hours to put together in the back end. So it's very quick and easy to do that. The keener-eyed of you may have noticed there was a little box down there that said produce images. This is something we're still playing around with. But we're also using DALL-E, which is another OpenAI product, to produce images. So we can start to put together sort of easy read, other things, or just generate images where we need to with text. And you can see those are pictures of trees to go with the writing around trees. So not in production yet, but very, very close to being so. And you can see that's probably very useful will be very useful for rewriting stuff, just making it more accessible, opening it up to the public, but also, casting, remember, B minus 8 out of 10, casting your eye over it before it goes public. The other thing that we're working on at the moment is redacting. Well, it's pretty much done. So redacting stuff. So I've just taken a bit of text. Again, when you're testing this, do try and use public data. I know it's secure, but test it with public data. I've taken this from Wikipedia. It's Oppenheimer's entry. I can put this through there, and it's redacted pretty much everything with names I included there. And you can see that B minus 8 out of 10, it's actually redacted the artist names there. So I think that's Picasso. We can't see that there, obviously, but it's Picasso and other artists. They're long dead, of course, but because it didn't know, we haven't specified exactly what we wanted to redact. It's taken their names out as well because it thought it was personal data. You could see a couple of more boxes at the bottom there. Take out dates, take out locations, and it really just redacts pretty much everything there. But it does quite a good job of that there. So that's obviously up and working now. It's not in production yet. So at some point you may ask to, how much does this stuff cost? And you may need to take a business case to somewhere like that. It does feel like that sometimes when you're sitting in front of a board or something begging for money. That's the European Central Bank actually, but yes, it feels a little bit like that though. So the job advertisements, the big business case for this, how much did this cost in developer time to put that together? That was about 300 quid to do that. So it was very quick, cheap and easy. And the running costs of this, I'll just go next. That's how much we spend on it a month. So running costs are minimal. It's something like 0.4 pence for every job advertisement produced, 0.4 pence for every LinkedIn post produced. Incredibly cheap to run. And we're starting to share stuff. So I actually put this on GitHub myself, the code to redact stuff. It's written in JavaScript, so you can use it on any. It's the most used programming language on the internet, JavaScript. So you can take that away and use that, and just plug that into ChatGPT if you want to use that yourself. And we'll add the other ones in here, and you can use that for free according to the license there. So finally, what can you do with AI right now? So some tips for if you're taking your first steps in here. Use data that's already public. It's safer than using private data. You can play around with it. Just get, I saw when I was testing the redacting stuff with the team, just take some stuff from Wikipedia or other public sites. If you just want to test stuff out, replicate repetitions. Computers are brilliant at repeating stuff and changing one thing from a state to another. You can get caught up in the ethics and the sort of data stuff, and absolutely you should be thinking about that. But think about replicating the almost the mundane, those tasks that you're doing over and over again. It's very good at doing that. And use your imagination within the confines of what I said earlier about sort of ethics and data, and work together, collaborate. So we're putting stuff online, and through Local Gov Digital, which I'm part of, I'm looking to start a network for or a subgroup for councils who want to collaborate and work together on AI and producing, not just talking about the sort of ethics and data, but actual real things that we can share. And that's it. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Phil. Thank you so much. And a big shout out for Local Digital as well. Big shout out for Local Digital as well. So that's a really, really great community of practice really for people who are interested in anything local government, central government, and not just digital, because it really isn't just about digital anymore, is it? Thank you, Phil. Right, third up, and I'm giving you a little bit of extra time, all of you, at the moment, because we've only got 4, and it's super interesting. We've got our very own Tony. Wherever he is, here he is, and he's going to be talking through, and it's actually relevant a little bit to what Phil was talking about previously.
So hi everyone, nice to see you all. So hopefully I'm not going to contradict everything Phil just said, we're staying on the Gen AI topic, and I don't need to say how many of you know Gen AI because we've just had a presentation on it, but how many of you deployed Gen AI in your workplace? Officially. So that's I think a typical thing. Everybody's talking about it. Not everybody has yet done it. And that's one of the reasons why we've done it. In fact, we did this for 2 reasons. One, because we needed it. And secondly, because we wanted to do it and get experience from it before we could come to people like you and say, this is what you need to do and these are the lessons learned. So chatbots have been around for years, and still up until let's say a year ago, chatbots were still not brilliant. Everyone still wants to talk to a human at the end of it. But luckily, generative AI has really transformed the way chatbots can work, and they can now be much, much more human-like. But when, with our people team, we came up with the idea that, with lots of HR questions internally and so on. And we said to the people team, why don't you think of a digital assistant? And we can do FAQs, and hopefully we'll reduce the amount of questions that you get incoming. And the first thing Pam in the people team said to me was, does this mean we have to write hundreds or thousands of FAQs and try and keep them up to date? And how do we then keep them in line with all our policy documents? And it's like, yeah, it's a good question, Pam. But luckily, generative AI had come out. And so using some industry standard techniques, I mean, Phil's been talking about some of the things they've been doing. It's basically using generative AI to answer questions directly from your source policy documents and data and not having to write FAQs. Okay, so you don't have to maintain FAQs. And so the idea was born. And so we put it into action. So that's what we're going to show you today. So essentially, there is this is all on Azure. Yours was Azure, wasn't it, I think? No, what was, Zach, was yours on? Yeah, so is your similar cost, less than £200 a month in terms of hosting. So it's quite very cost effective, really. So we've got basically a search engine. We load documents into the search engine. You ask a question, when is our payday or something like that. It'll go to get the most relevant policy document and use ChatGPT, a private instance of ChatGPT, to answer the question from your internal documents and data. We've even got some ESG data in there, like diversity data, like a spreadsheet. And so our employees can ask, how have our emissions improved this year? And it will scrape data off a spreadsheet and give an answer. So yeah, very, very useful. And we have made it anonymous. Because we wanted to encourage employees to ask whatever question they may want to ask. Just to give an example, we might have employees going on maternity leave or paternity leave, and they might want to ask questions about how much leave do I get, but they might not want to announce to the people team or anyone else that there's a chance they might be going on long-term leave. The bot can also enable you to put in suggestions and give feedback. This is the beauty of Gen AI. You don't have to prefix your feedback with the word feedback. You just enter your feedback and it understands you're not asking a question. So very, very valuable. But we deliberately did it anonymously to encourage people to use it as a safe space, as it were. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to just do a quick demo now. It might be a bit small on the screen. But maybe you just have to trust me, okay? So here we go. So first thing I'm going to ask is, I'm logged in as Paul, just like, when is payday? There you go. So, whoops. Apple Maps there.
It's a question I've asked quite a lot.
When is payday? There we go. So when is payday? There we go. You'll be paid on the 28th of each month. Nice and simple. And what we have is a yes or no question, because behind the scenes as well, we capture everything the bot is doing. The questions, we use Gen AI to extract the topics from the questions, so we can look at trends, the hot topics, what's on people's mind. Do you know what it is? It's always holidays. But also if people answer no, then we know the questions we need to deal with. Now, we've got about 35 policy documents here. We knew day one we're not going to be able to answer everyone's questions. So we use it for continuous learning. And we have a review meeting every Thursday, and we go through the unanswered questions where people have gone no, and then we continuously improve the knowledge base. Right, sorry. One more question here. We're going to do, am I able to use social media? So questions like this, we've got no FAQ at all. We have a social media policy document. It doesn't actually say whether you are or not allowed to use social media. But here it's going, there is no rule, but be mindful about how you use social media. It gives very sort of smart, human-like responses, even when there's no FAQ. Other examples, hopefully we'll never need it, but disciplinary policy, we've got levels of disciplinary action. You can say how many levels of disciplinary action, and it goes through it smart enough to count and says you've got 4, and it bullet points and says these are the levels of disciplinary action. Another really important feature here is self-validation, because normally with FAQ bots, if you ask something it can't answer, it'll just come up with anything that might have the same keywords. Inappropriate questions as well are difficult to handle, but with Gen AI, it's actually quite easy. What we do is we have a process of self-validation. So before we put any answer up, we use Gen AI. This was the question. This is the answer that's come back. Does the answer actually answer the original question? And if it's no, we don't even display it. So I'm going to ask an inappropriate question here. What is the salary of our CEO?
Can we ask to give microphone stands on expenses?
So what? I'm sorry, I was not able to find a suitable answer. So normally an FAQ bot would throw up anything that had the word salary. It hasn't got anything about the CEO. So it's is a very powerful tool. Sorry, one more. I'm just going to make a suggestion. Okay, so I've asked questions, and now I'm going to do a suggestion. It's going to be, we need more social events. So there, instead of going through the knowledge base, it just says, we appreciate your suggestion, we'll look into it. And again, that's fed into the database, and on a weekly basis, we'll look at the suggestions anonymously. So you understand it's so seamless with generative AI, it just understands. We can ask questions in a different language, we can have a profanity filter, to look at inappropriate questions, as in rude questions to your colleagues, that sort of thing. Lots of things you can do with Gen AI. It can even tell a joke. Do you want to know what the joke is? It's a bad one. What do you call a computer that sings? Adele. Right. I told you it was bad. Yeah, it is. We've got hashtag dad joke. There we go. Right, let's go back to the presentation. Sorry, Paul, would you mind using your... How do we get back to you? There we go. Thank you. Right, so... I know it'll be very small, but these are the Power BI reports we have. And so it's kind of the patterns of usage. You can see these kind of word clouds. So that's Gen AI extracting the topics so we can see the types of topics. We've got unanswered questions and the themes behind the unanswered questions, and then a report on suggestions and feedback. This, for me, is the jewel in the crown of it. It's understanding everything that people are asking about and what's on people's minds. What I liked as well is we put this live for HR, and within a week, the marketing team came to us and said, we get asked loads of FAQs, when can we use, where's the PowerPoint template, how can we use our logo? So we've now put a load of marketing FAQs in there as well. Interesting stat for you, see that 54% there? That is the percentage of questions that are answered correctly. Now, for us, I was quite surprised. We had no idea what it was going to be. And it's very difficult to gauge, what's your success criteria? We knew we couldn't answer every question, but basically 55% of times we're getting the right response, which I think for something which is less than 2 months old and 35 policy documents is really, really good. So definitely, if you're going to do this, success criteria is not based on that percentage, because the whole idea about the system is you're going to learn really what's on people's minds and what documentation you need to provide. I guess another learning curve we had. Anyone want to have a guess at what's the hardest thing about putting a chatbot live? What's the hardest thing? Anyone want to suggest? Go on, James.
Security sign-up?
No. This is Azure, it's easy. It's choosing a name. So we went round the houses for months on this, and we ended up, everyone just referred to it as the chatbot. So it's just called the chatbot. All right, so there you go. So in fact, it takes longer to choose a name than it does to actually put it in. So there we go. All right, so I hope I didn't overstay my welcome. I'll be standing on one of the pillars, but thanks all for listening, and I look forward to speaking to you later if you want to know any more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tony. And hopefully we haven't got anyone else leaving mid-time. I'm going to do this really quickly so no one else can leave. Okay, Last but not least, Rachel, who's had a massive train journey. So thank you for getting here in the rain. Here you go, Rachel.
Hello. Right, I'm going to be quick. I've got lots and lots and lots of things I could talk about, but rather than talking about all of them, I'm going to give you like headlines, and then some of the things in there might be interesting. Am I right? This isn't changing my voice. This is just for the thing. Okay. So hi, this is me. I do not work in local government. I spent a long time making things on the internet, about 20 years, and for the last 8 or 9 I've worked in policy and research. And one of the things I've done quite a lot of is work with a lot of corporates, mostly, over the last few years, helping them think about how to implement AI in ways that are not really evil. And I mean, the answer basically, it's not always possible. And sometimes you're better off not. And what we really notice, so I run a tiny agency. We do 2 different things. We make pilots to show how the internet ought to be, and then we work with people to persuade them to make it more like that. And the things that we're interested in social justice, equity. We care about closing the gaps, because I think technology is amazing at making the gaps really big, and it doesn't have to be. And what we like to talk about is, rather than making AI that puts money in the pocket of 8 billionaires, can we make it work for everyone? I do have a couple of the slides now, which is me possibly projecting into what some meetings might be like. First one, it feels like there's a lot of hype at the moment around AI, and there will be a lot of people sort of saying, well, you have to try it. You can't say no without having a go. But do you? But I think, so the thing is, one of the things that we've realised from people who come to talk to us is, when you ask people, why are you doing this? Sometimes it isn't because it meets their user needs. It isn't because it meets their strategy goals. It's because someone in the senior leadership team wants to, or you need to look innovative, whatever that means. And it's not like you're being led by the tech, not by what you're trying to do. And I think, really, everything ought to align with your goals and the needs of the people you're serving. We're not all here to work for Microsoft, which might seem like a shock, but anyway. So, the other thing is, right, we've seen, this evening, a couple of examples of, having a go, right? A colleague of mine on Monday, Tuesday, one of the days in the week that is not today, was at an event with some people at Camden, and they were working with a chatbot made by a technology company based in London, and it was meant to be a demo, right, to encourage everyone to use it more. And what the group were doing was they were designing a fundraising event. Within half an hour, what they had was a rap song about making soup. So it's maybe there are some people who would say that that's because they were not great prompt engineers. I have a whole other 20 minutes to moan about that, but that's a different thing that I won't do now. But actually, if a tool like that can take you, people who are actively trying to make a thing work in the wrong way so fast, the other things that are likely to happen are significant. And so what do we do about it? Now, I'm all for trying things out, which is great, but I think it's also important to have strategies. And I think as well, a lot of the time, when we're talking about these kinds of tools, we're not really situating them properly in the context of the world. And I'll kind of come to a few headings about that in a moment. I'm going to skate over this really quickly, because basically what I'm about to do is try and sell you something with fun attached. So as I've said, it's really easy to think you ought to use AI just to use it, but really it needs to meet the needs of what you're actually doing, right? So we do three things. One of them is training to explain the environmental, social impacts of tech, and I will talk about that more in a moment. But the other things we do is we help people kind of walk through strategies or plans in order that they can work out what might happen when they do a thing. Because actually, I think it's very easy not to know how much you know about your service, your users, your data, how much, if you have a couple of hours to think it over, you can work out the things that are likely not to work or to escalate or to go wrong. But you very often don't have the opportunity to do that. One of the reasons I was late today, I was in really interesting meeting this morning with someone who runs a supercomputer. And they were saying that if AI the training continues in the way it is now, it will use up all the energy in the world, right? I mean, they're not joking. And that actually, so I'm going to be slightly cheeky now. The bot we just saw, every call on the ChatGPT to look up a piece of information that someone could have taped on a piece of paper on their, desk, right? The energy cost of that is non-trivial, right? Every call is burning a log, right? And that I think we really need to think about actualizing and understanding the environmental impact of these things. Not only that, there's all kinds of things in here. I'm sure lots of us have heard about bias in data, incomplete data sets, how that is compounded in decisions that are reflecting the wrong kind of power or the wrong kind of thinking, right? So I could talk about this for literally hours, but I'm going to move on. But it feels like a lot of the time when we're being asked to implement things at work, you don't have the opportunity to put that in the context of the wider world. And that actually, I think sometimes when you're implementing AI, you might be doing things that do not align with your the values without realizing it. Very quickly through the last two bits. We have done lots of work with people trying to help them understand what might happen next, right? I think sometimes I was talking to someone earlier today who was saying that when a certain very large technology company is trying to sell them seats on their quite well-known airplane-themed tool, one of the things they talk about is, what they don't talk about, but they sort of imply there might be a staff savings, and it's kind of nudge. But people don't externalize those things. And really, good management doesn't happen on the down low, right? Good management happens in the open. The strategies are purposeful. And I think it's really important to be able to understand how the technology you are using aligns with your ethics and your values. And then lastly, I talked about this, thinking about how you play through. And I don't know anyone here has used consequence scanning, which is a tool I made at .everyone in 2018, which is amazing. There are loads of people who use it, very large technology companies and academia, all kinds of places. And that all that is like it's 3 lots of 5 prompts. They're not big things to ask, but they're things that help you think differently. And we have like a range of other tools that begin by like helping you think about where you would like to be and working back from that rather than thinking about where you are now and working forwards. And that is more or less it. That is me. I think you can all have a drink now, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel, and thank you, everybody. That's all of our speakers. Thank you so much for coming along and being part of this. So please go around and then have a chat with the speakers, have a chat with any of us here as well, at the TPX, all of the crew around. So please do. I'm Paul, because I didn't bother introducing myself before because I forgot. But yeah, please enjoy yourselves now and have a bit of fun and have a bit of a chat with people. We probably know lots of people here as well. So thank you all for coming.